All right, let's dive into one of the biggest ideas from James Clear's Atomic Habits. It's called the habit loop. And honestly, it's like the hidden operating system that runs so much of our daily lives. We're going to break down exactly how it works, because once you understand this loop, you basically have the master key to building good habits and, yes, finally breaking the bad ones. So let's start with a question that probably hits home for a lot of us. Why do we do things without even thinking about them? You find yourself reaching for your phone, grabbing a cookie, or biting your nails, and you didn't even consciously decide to do it. It just kind of happens. Well, it turns out there's a very powerful, very real reason our brains work this way.
And that reason is our brains are actually built to go on autopilot. See, having habits isn't a character flaw or a sign of weakness. It's a biological strategy. It's a really clever and super efficient way our brain deals with the world.
So, what even is a habit? Well, think of it like this: it's an automatic solution to a problem your brain has seen over and over again. Every time you tie your shoes, your brain doesn't have to reinvent the wheel. It just runs the shoe tying program. It's built a fast, low energy script to solve that problem on repeat. And this is the real payoff. Every habit you create basically outsources the thinking. It reduces what scientists call cognitive load, which is just a fancy way of saying it frees up your brain power. This lets you focus your precious mental energy on new stuff, like solving a tough problem at work or learning a new skill, instead of getting bogged down in the basics. Okay, so if habits are these little automatic programs, how does our brain write the code for them? Well, every single habit, good or bad, big or small, follows the exact same four-step pattern. This is the neurological feedback loop that's constantly running in the background of our lives. And here they are, the four steps that make every habit tick. First, there's a cue, which is just a trigger. That cue leads to a craving. That craving motivates a response. That's the actual habit. And finally, that response delivers a reward. Cue, craving, response, reward. That little loop is what teaches your brain what's worth doing again in the future. We can actually make this even simpler. You can bunch these steps into two main phases: the cue and the craving. That's the problem phase. This is your brain noticing something and saying, hey, something needs to change here. Then you have the response and the reward, which is the solution phase. That's you taking action and your brain deciding, okay, did that work? Was that good? All right, enough with the theory, right? Let's make this real. The best way to get it is to see it play out. So we're going to walk through a super modern and I think really relatable example that happens to, well, probably most of us. So picture it. You walk in the door after a long, tough day. You're drained, you drop your stuff, collapse on the couch, and before you even register it, your phone is in your hand and you're just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. Sound familiar? Yeah. Let's break down what's actually going on inside your brain. First up, the cue. Now, the trigger isn't the couch or the phone itself. The real cue is that internal feeling of being completely exhausted. Your brain recognizes that state of discomfort and immediately starts looking for a way out, for some kind of relief. This leads to the craving, and this is a super important point. You're not actually craving social media. What you're craving is a change in how you feel. You want a mental break, you want a distraction from the stress of the day. The craving is for the feeling of relief, not the app. So what's the response your brain chooses? You pick up your phone and scroll. Why that? Simple, because it's so darn easy. It's right there, it requires basically zero effort, and your brain knows it's a reliable path to a predictable outcome. And finally, the reward. That endless stream of content gives you a little mental escape, a temporary feeling of distraction. It satisfies that craving for a break. And because it worked, your brain makes a mental note. Hey, next time we feel like this, let's do that again. Boom, the loop is locked in and reinforced for next time. And here is the single most powerful insight of this whole thing. The cue. Feeling tired after work isn't going to change. And the craving for a mental break, that's totally normal. The magic here is realizing you don't have to fight those first two steps. You can just swap the response. You can hijack the loop. Instead of scrolling, maybe you listen to one song or do 5 minutes of stretching. You can use the existing trigger to launch a better habit. So knowing you can swap out the response is a total game changer. But how do you actually make a new response stick? That's where we get to the practical toolkit. James Clear calls these the 4 laws of behavior change, and they are your user manual for habit design. This is the million-dollar question, right? How do we go from just understanding this loop to actually controlling it, How do we design better habits and make them so automatic that our brain chooses them without a second thought? The answer is right here in these 4 laws. And notice how perfectly they map onto each step of the loop. To engineer a new habit, you make the cue obvious. To create motivation, you make the craving attractive. To make sure you actually do it, you make the response incredibly easy. And to make it stick, you make the reward satisfying.
And what's so brilliant about this is you can just flip it upside down to break a bad habit. Want to stop checking your phone? Make the cue invisible. Put your phone in another room. Make the habit unattractive. Remind yourself how it makes you feel after. Make it difficult. Log out of your apps. And make the outcome unsatisfying. This gives you a complete system for taking control.
So, at the end of the day, this habit loop isn't some big mystery that runs your life. It's a simple, predictable pattern. And now that you understand the pieces and have these 4 laws, you have the blueprint. You can be the architect of your own habits. So that leaves us with one final thought. This isn't just cool information, it's a call to action. Take a second and think about your own daily routine. What's one small automatic loop that you could tweak? What's the first loop you're going to redesign?